Today's message is adapted from a sermon by Mike Cleveland. And the text of today's message is the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verses 1 through 15. And I'm going to go ahead and read that now. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate of the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is the hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Once there was a tourist walking in the back roads of Israel when ahead of him he saw two shepherds, each with his own flock of sheep. And they came together in the middle of the road and began talking. As they were talking, the sheep began to intermingle, and it looked like one big flock. The tourist wondered how these shepherds would ever untangle this mess. It seemed like an impossible task with hundreds of sheep all mixed together as one herd. And yet they began to part, and when they began to part company, each shepherd merely said a few words, calling their sheep to come, and the sheep began to split back into the original groups and followed their shepherd. By nature, sheep recognize the voice of their shepherd. Look at verse 4. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. John 10, 1 through 15 is a parable that teaches truth. You can see that from verse 6, Jesus used this parable, but the Pharisees didn't understand what he was telling them. The passage that follows, it follows chapter 9, and where we saw that the man who had his eyes opened had been roughly treated by the Pharisees and was thrown out of the synagogue. And Jesus is still speaking to the Pharisees here. John writes that thieves and robbers destroy the sheep, and he's speaking of these Pharisees. But they didn't understand. They don't know he is referring to them. So this passage shows Jesus coming to the shepherd, to the sheep pen of Judaism, where there is a danger of thieves and robbers, that is, the scribes and the Pharisees, who hurt the sheep. And Jesus comes calling out his own sheep, and they listen to his voice, and he leads them out of the sheep pen of Judaism and into the rich pastures of the gospel. We need to understand that Jesus coming as a shepherd is simply the fulfillment of the cries and prayers of those in the Old Testament. Excuse me. In Numbers 27, Moses is about to die. And like any good shepherd, His dying thoughts are on his sheep. Moses prays, "May the Lord, the God who gives breath to all living things, appoint someone over this community to go out and to come in before them, one who will lead them out and bring them in, so that the Lord's people will not be like a sheep without a shepherd." We see Moses' prayer answered in chapter 10 of John, which we just read. Moses knew that people, like sheep, need a shepherd or they'll wander away. We can see that those who fail to follow the shepherd become consumed with with other things. Consumed by money, consumed by power, consumed by pleasure, consumed by fame. When we fail to follow the shepherd, we become consumed by other things. And it can become difficult to find our way back to the shepherd. People need a shepherd. They need leadership. And there's an amazing answer, there is an amazing answer given to Moses' prayer. In answer to Moses' prayer, a young man is brought forward, a young man by the name of Joshua. Joshua is chosen to succeed Moses. Joseph, he is a foreshadow of Jesus. It's interesting to note that Joshua is Hebrew, and the translation into the Greek is actually Jesus. The names are the same. God's real answer to Moses' prayer, whom Joshua points to, is Jesus, who came as the good shepherd to lead people out of Judaism and legalism and bring them into the green pastures of the gospel. John 10 is the answer to Moses' prayer that we see in Numbers 27. Jesus warns of people who would harm and steal the sheep. He warns about thieves and robbers who try to break in and harm this and steal the sheep. And he gives us a way to recognize them. In verse 1, Jesus tells them, very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other means, is a thief or a robber. He tells them they don't come in through the gate. Instead, they try to climb in some other way. In verse 7, Jesus says, I am the gate for the sheep. Now we can see that Jesus is talking about men who reject Christ. Men who try and gain entrance by their own efforts. That's a way to recognize a false shepherd. They reject Christ. They try and climb in some other way. So there's a warning here. We are to watch out for people who reject the gospel, who reject the cross where Jesus died, and who are promoting some other way. You can tell these men just by listening to them. They can talk about a lot of religious subjects. Many may know the Bible very well, but their message is not the cross. The passion of their lives is not about the one true entryway. No, they've got another subject, another way in. I want us to be aware of what people teach and see if the main message is... I want us to be aware of what people teach and see if the main message is the cross, is the one entryway, or if they are all distracted by other subjects. Jesus has given us a way to recognize them. They reject the gate and climb in some other way. Well, Jesus comes to take his people out of that pen where the thieves and robbers are. And there are three things we can note about the shepherd, and there are three things that we can note about the sheep. First, Jesus, he's a personal shepherd. Verse 3, he calls his sheep by name. He knows our names. He knows us. He knows if we are sick or well. He knows if we are with the flock or if we've wandered away. He knows if we're in pain. He knows if we're hungry. He knows if we're depressed. He knows us. Mike Cleveland relates the following experience. One time I was flying the CEO of our company from Houston to Cleveland. He walks into the airplane cockpit and he sticks out his hand and says, "Hi, you must be Mike Cleveland. I'm Larry Kellner." I was amazed. I'm a nobody, a puny little employee. Larry, he has over 40,000 employees, yet he knew my name. Now I know that he simply probably looked up my name ahead of time, but I didn't care. I was just so impressed with him. Jesus, he calls his own sheep by name. He is a personal shepherd, and he knows and cares for each sheep. Secondly, he's a powerful shepherd. Jesus says he leads them out. Now, in the context, he's referring to leading his sheep out of the pen of Judaism and out from the sheepfold of legalism, out away from the robbers and the thieves who will harm the sheep. He leads us out of a religion where we have to earn God's favor by what we do. He has already earned He has already earned God's favor for us by what he did. He leads us out of religion where you must fulfill the law's demands or you're doomed. Some of the most precious words in this chapter are, he leads them out. He is a powerful shepherd. Third, our shepherd he protects us. Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep." The picture here is of the shepherd protecting his sheep at the cost of his own life. So notice how closely the heart of the shepherd is bound up with the life of the sheep. He would rather die than let any harm come to his sheep. The reality is this. You and I were held captive by the prince of this world. We were dragged away by our own sin. James 1 says, we are by our own evil desire, we are dragged away and enticed. And Jesus Christ came from heaven, the good shepherd, and he went straight to the cross. He laid down his life in order to rescue us from the punishment of our sin. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Greater love has no man than this, and he lays down his life for his friends. So how do the sheep respond to the shepherd? There are three ways. First, they listen to the shepherd. Verse 3 says they listen to his voice. Verse 4 says that they know his voice. And this means that believers hear the word. They know the truth. A man went to Ireland to visit his relatives. While he was staying at his cousin's farm, they told him to go out and round up the sheep and put them in the pen. After nearly about an hour of chasing after the sheep, trying to push, poke, prod, and even pull them with no success, he gave up and asked his cousins for help. They sent out their 5-year-old daughter, who simply called out the sheep, and within minutes they had all followed them through the gate into the pen. Jesus knows the voice of their shepherd. Sheep know the voice of their shepherd, and they follow him. So what is the voice of the shepherd? Is it the Bible? The Bible is a critical life in a believer, but it can be abused. Jim Jones, he preached from the Bible, and his preaching resulted in the death of hundreds of people. That is not the voice of the shepherd. David Koresh led people out to Waco, Texas, and through the preaching straight from the scripture led them to their death. This is not the voice of the shepherd. Many take the scriptures and twist the meaning to something that it was never intended. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and many others all use the Bible, but they are not the voice of the shepherd. Jesus, he made it clear. His sheep follow him because they know his voice. They're able to discern the truth from the lies of those who would lead them astray. The second response of the sheep is that they are led by the shepherd. You can see this in verse 4. His sheep follow him because they know his voice. This is the distinguishing mark of a Christian. We follow Jesus because we love Jesus. I want to ask you, is there something you need to give up in order to follow Christ? Maybe he's calling you to change something, but you've resisted him
up until now. Maybe today is the day when you say, God, the good shepherd laid down his life for me. I'm going to lay down my life to follow him. And the third response of the sheep is that they are loved by the shepherd. Verse 5 tells us, but they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize the stranger's voice. If you listen to someone who does not have the voice of the shepherd, they're probably going to quote the Bible. They're going to argue for what they think is true. It may entice you. You will say things like, oh, I know the gospel, but this is really important. Or, yeah, the gospel is basic, but what we're studying is so deep. And on it goes until you can hardly hear the voice of the shepherd. The encouragement from God's word is to run, to flee, to get away from any other voice that is not the shepherd's. Be faithful to the good shepherd. Because of our sin, you and I have been dragged off and we're under the dominion of the prince of this world, Satan. And Jesus died on the cross and shed his blood for us so that these chains of the evil one can be broken. The good shepherd has laid down his life for the sheep. He laid down his life for you, and he laid down his life for me. And one day our shepherd will physically appear, and we will see the wounds that we deserved in his body. Yes, he laid down his life for his sheep. He laid down his life for you, and he laid down his life for me.